So here we come to really the very centerpiece of Landsberg's essay, section 4, the death of a friend and the experience of repetition. I don't know what that last part means, the experience of repetition. I'll have to think about that more, but it certainly, we understand why it's called the death of a friend. If we're looking for the experience of death, and in some respects, Epicurus's statement or his strictures where he implies that we can't experience our own death is almost irrefutable. But we can experience in some way, and I have to be very particular in what I say here, in some way we can experience the death of others or the deaths of others. But we have to be very careful about what it is we are actually experiencing. And Landsberg in section 4 gives really a tour de force, brilliant description of what it's like to be with someone while they're dying and after they have died. And that is starts here on page 199. If one is lucky enough to come across Landsberg, and he is not very widely read in the English language philosophical world, it's true, a quote from page 199 where he says here, the death of one's neighbor is infinitely more than just the death of another. That's how I discovered Landsberg, and that's probably his most famous quote, or the most famous thing he ever said. And it is very crucial because the death of the neighbor is really the death of the loved one. The death of the person who you have a strong relationship with is what he's talking about, which of course he means love. And that is absolutely crucial here, the presence of love, the element of love. What is it like to be with someone who's dying? He picks it up here again on page 199. First of all, we perceive a process being completed in the organism of the other. Here he is presented to us as essentially a living body. That is, the process of dying is a bodily process. It is a process going on within a human organism. It is perhaps the crisis of the illness through which death will intervene. We know that the person we love still exists as such, only he is hidden behind this process, though he may reappear at times, for instance, in a few last brief words. But the dominant fact is this, that a living body is suffering. So the experience of being with somebody who's dying is overwhelmingly a bodily experience. The sympathy that we feel for them is a sympathy for something that their body is going through. Our own body suffers in the flesh with that of our suffering comrade. And then there comes a moment when all is calm, when all seems over, and the contorted features of the well-loved face relax. It is precisely at this moment when the living being abandons us. It is that moment when we realize that the body has gone through its suffering and it has arrived at death, is now a corpse, that we shall experience the mysterious absence of the person as spirit. That's crucial. For a moment, we have a feeling of relief. The suffering of our bodily sympathy is over, but immediately we are carried away into the strange, cold world of death fulfilled. The vital pity we felt is thus suspended in a void and suddenly gives way to the profound awareness that this being, in all the uniqueness of his person, is no longer there and can no more return into this body. He will never speak to us again. He will never live again in community with us as he used to do. Never again. That's crucial, right? What is he talking about? That being with a dying person is overwhelmingly an experience of empathy with the suffering of their bodies. And that once death is reached, what we notice right away is the absence of the person. But as the person we knew is gone. Now that the body has died, the person, who has got to be thought of as distinct from their body in some way, is now gone and gone forever. It's the absence of the person as spirit. And that this is final, that this is it. The higher forms of faith and survival, he's talking about Christianity, Islam, are in complete agreement with this experience. That is, that feeling of finality, that the person is gone forever and you will never be able to touch them, communicate with them again, is there's nothing heretical about it. Nothing that good Christians or Muslims or others couldn't admit. But, okay, with the qualification, they speak of the spiritual personality not as annihilated, but only as if vanished, as if existing in absence. If death were the absent presence, then the dead man is now present absence. We experience the dead as absent, as what is no longer there but should be there. The immediate experience of the death of the other does not, at first, offer us any certainty of his survival. Because if we actually look at our experience of the deaths of others, there's nothing that points to an afterlife. There's nothing that points to that person still existing in some other form. It presents us with the fact of absence. Okay? The person is absent, not there. But, okay, this is crucial, and says nothing as to whether this is a sequel to annihilation or only a disappearance with regard to ourselves. Here is the most important point. The death of the other, overwhelmingly, the experience is the absence of the person. But whether that is a sequel to annihilation, right, that's the Epicurean view. The sequel is just what follows, right? That is, if that absence is a result of the fact that they have become nothing, that's one choice. Or a disappearance with regard to ourselves, that's the Christian choice, right? Either that absence is either because the person is no more in any form, or that absence is due to the fact that whatever form they now take is not one that is accessible to us. It is perhaps the most important philosophical question, philosophical experience that a human being can undergo. That choice is the absence of the person to be accounted for by their annihilation, or is the absence only a disappearance with regard to myself? That is, the idea that they still do exist, but not in a form that is accessible to me in the form I am now. It is what separates human beings and their worldviews, is it not? It couldn't be more important. The belief in survival promises us, and survival is the Christian idea that death is not the end. The belief in survival promises us that our own death will reunite us with him who has disappeared, that we shall once more hear his voice in unknown circumstances and liberated from the former body. But a pure and simple experience of death does nothing either to confirm or to destroy this promise. We will not find proof in any form of survival simply by analyzing our experience of the death of the other. In any case, it is a purely human experience, for it assumes that there has been some realization of two kindred principles which are essentially human, a spiritual personalization and a personal love for one's friend. Well, I mean, it couldn't be more important. The question that he raises couldn't be more central to our existence. And in a certain way, everything which follows in this essay is an attempt to argue in a certain way for the one choice. That is, that the absence of the person is to be accounted for as a disappearance in relation to us, not as equal to the person's annihilation.